Well, I mean, I think a lot of the developed world, if you're talking about Europe and Japan, where you have, this type of debt situation, although at least in Japan, I mean, they're still a creditor nation. Europe as a whole, if you look at all the European community combined, it's a net creditor, and Europe and Japan have trade surpluses. So they're in different situations than the United States. But what they share with the United States is they have enormous debt relative to the size of their economies. And both of these countries are going to have to deal with a lot of disruptions when that debt service becomes, too big a burden on their economies. I mean, right now, Japan is trying to fight that. But for years, Japan got away, and to an extent, Europe too. The artificially low interest rates were supposedly a cure to the non-existent problem of there not being enough inflation. That's what they were always hiding behind. Go back to Abenomics and all this nonsense. Japan's inflation rate is too low. That's the problem that this monetary policy is designed to solve. Well, after several years of extremely high inflation, which is going to happen. I mean, inflation is not just temporarily here. We've been having inflation for better than a decade. It's called quantitative easing. It's not like it just showed up out of left field. It just initially showed up more in asset prices. But the entire time I was warning that eventually it would end up in consumer good prices, and that's where it's going to stay. And so we're going to be looking at extremely high rates of inflation for many, many years. This is not going away. This is here permanently. And so at some point, the Japanese electorate, Europeans, there is going to be a big push. We can't live with this kind of inflation. Something has to be done. And so at that point, they do have to make a decision. Are they going to have, runaway inflation, or are they going to let rates go up, shrink money supply, and deal with that problem? Bankruptcies, and all that would be healthy, because you have a lot of companies that should go out of business that are being propped up. I mean, economies are misallocated. There's a lot of problems that governments create when they create inflation and artificially suppress interest rates. And so those problems need to be resolved. But I just think that the United States is in a worse position to try to deal with the alternative of fighting inflation, given the nature of our economy, this huge bubble service sector economy that's built on deficit spending and trade deficits, budget deficits, a service sector economy that's predicated on the rest of the world supplying us with the goods that we can't produce. And I do think that one of the things that's going to change with this massive inflation is I do believe there is going to be a new economic order. I think that the economies of the world are going to recognize that the system we have now, where everybody's fiat currency is backed by another fiat currency, is going to come to an end. I mean, just like, you saw they tried to back that stable coin, what was it, Terra Luna. Yeah, they said it was stable, but it wasn't backed by anything but some other crypto. So what was backing that crypto? Nothing. So you have dollars, euros backed by dollars. Well, what backs the dollar? Nothing. So it doesn't work. So I do think that we're going to go back to an economic order where gold is the primary reserve asset, and the euro is backed by gold, the yen is backed by gold, the dollar, those are the primary reserves. Everybody has an asset, a monetary asset that isn't somebody else's liability, and no one has this exorbitant privilege of being able to create a reserve currency out of thin air and just live off the productivity of everybody else. But when we make that transition, the United States is the least able to withstand it, because we have been the primary beneficiary of the economic order that we have today. And when that changes and the United States can no longer do this, when we have to go back to a saving production economy where we can't consume unless we produce and nobody can borrow unless somebody else saves, that is a major transition. And I don't even see how we undertake it, especially in the political environment that we're in, the popularity of big government and socialism, how we're going to dismantle enough government to even allow this to happen. And now when you have so many people demanding, we want less inflation, they don't realize that that's impossible unless we have less government, because inflation is how we're paying for government. And so the only way to let the middle class off the hook on inflation is to let them off the hook on government, which means we have to slash Social Security, Medicare, Obamacare, defense. No one's willing to do that. Alternatively, they can dramatically raise taxes on the middle class. No one's going to do that either. So we just have this unique problem, I think the severity of it, that I think the dollar just has a profound decline. But, I think the emerging economies are going to end up in a much better shape. The ones that have been more productive and have saved more and produced more and exported more. I think, they're in much better position than the advanced economies to come out, really, really winners on the other side of this.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.